Sometimes I would point my microphone towards the audience and I would make them sing it. There's moments where I cheated and I tapped on the microphone like it was the microphone's fault. And there's also moments where we had to stop the show. Quick change. I never came back. I can't lie anymore.
For more than a decade, Céline Dion has been smiling through interviews, waving to fans, and stepping into the spotlight like everything was perfectly fine. But behind that legendary voice and graceful presence was a truth she kept locked away. Now, after 14 years of quietly carrying that weight, Céline has finally decided to tell the world what she's really been going through. And it changes how we see everything. And trust me, once you hear what she's been hiding, you'll never look at her journey the same way again. Come along. Living Two Lives. For decades, the world saw Céline Dion as a picture of calm power and polished beauty. A singer who stepped onto grand stages in fine gowns and filled huge rooms with a voice that sounded steady and sure. People talked about elegance, control, and class, and many believed that such a public image must come from a life that felt just as smooth behind closed doors. Yet what remained hidden for years was a very different reality, one filled with pain that came without warning and fear that never seemed to rest. While the world focused on sold-out shows and standing ovations, Céline Dion was dealing with a body that would suddenly tighten and lock in ways that made even simple movements hard. And at times the pain was so sharp that it could even crack ribs. How could someone look so strong under bright lights while feeling so fragile in private? On stage, everything looked perfect. The voice rose and fell with ease, the posture stayed tall, and the smile never failed to meet the crowd. Each note sounded like it came from a place of calm control, and each step across the stage looked planned and graceful. Off stage, though, the story was far more complicated. The same body that carried a powerful voice through long shows also carried a condition that brought painful muscle spasms and deep worry. While fans saw old Hollywood style and grace, there was a woman quietly trying to understand why the body no longer behaved the way it once had. The first signs appeared during the Taking Chances tour in 2008, when sudden spasms began to interrupt both singing and daily life. What started as confusion soon turned into years of searching for answers, and this search came with fear, stress, and endless questions. How could a world tour go on when the body kept sending such alarming signals? At the same time, Céline Dion was also carrying another heavy load. During these years, Renee, the partner in life and love, was battling cancer. That fight required care, patience, and a level of emotional strength that few people ever have to show in public. Céline once shared that when such a serious illness hits a family, it can feel like the ground drops away, yet strength had to rise because Renee needed help in ways never needed before. Even while traveling, performing, and meeting work demands, Céline was also feeding Renee through a tube and staying by his side during his hardest moments. How many people could keep going with such weight on both heart and body at the same time? Keeping up a flawless public image during this period took more effort than most could imagine. The pain and spasms did not pause just because a show was scheduled, so strong medicine became part of the routine. Céline later explained that large amounts of medication were needed just to get through performances, even though such doses came with serious risks. This was not about chasing comfort or ease, but about trying to keep a promise to fans and a career built over decades. Each show became a careful balance between managing symptoms and meeting expectations. Singing styles were adjusted, breathing was watched closely, and every movement had to be planned. Celine also tried many treatments, from steam therapy to medicines meant for breathing issues, all in a long and tiring effort to find something that worked. How many times can someone try again before feeling worn down? The emotional side of this struggle was just as heavy as the physical pain. Hiding such a serious condition meant living two lives at once. In public, there was a bright smile and steady voice. In private, there was fear, frustration, and a feeling of being trapped by silence. Celine once said that playing the hero became too much, yet the pressure to stay quiet felt just as strong. In the world of fame, showing weakness can bring worry about losing work or being judged, and that fear can keep people quiet even when they are hurting. Every interview, every photo, and every appearance had to match the image of success, even when the truth was far from easy. How long can anyone carry such a mask without feeling tired inside? At home, another layer of care came into play. Celine worked hard to protect her children from the full picture of what was happening. After already losing a father, the thought of adding more fear to young hearts felt unbearable. For as long as possible, symptoms were kept out of sight, even when spasms became stronger. Still, safety plans had to be made. Panic buttons were placed around the house, and the boys were taught what to do in an emergency. This was not the life of ease that many imagine when thinking of a global star. Instead, it was a life that required planning for the unexpected and preparing for moments when the body might fail. What kind of strength does it take to stay hopeful while living with such constant risk? Through all of this, Céline Dion continued to appear in the world as the same polished performer that fans loved. Dresses still sparkled, songs still moved hearts, and applause still filled arenas. Yet each note came from someone who was pushing through pain and fear just to be there. Over time, the toll became too heavy to ignore, and stepping back from the stage became necessary. Speaking openly about the condition took courage, but it also brought understanding. Many people saw for the first time how much had been carried in silence for so long. The contrast between what the public saw and what Celine lived shows how even the brightest stars can face deep struggles. Fame can create an image of perfect life, but real life often holds challenges that no spotlight can erase. Celine's journey is not just about music or illness, but about endurance, love, and the quiet strength it takes to keep going when things feel uncertain. Through pain, care for her family, and years of quietly holding everything together, there was a woman doing the very best she could under impossible conditions. But what she never said carries more weight than anyone realized. Watch closely and stay till the very end, because her silence tells the most powerful story of all: the emotional weight of silence. For more than a decade, Céline Dion carried a heavy and quiet weight that almost no one could see. Long before the world learned about stiff person syndrome, the famous singer had already been living with strange and painful symptoms that slowly changed daily life. On the outside, concerts continued, tours went on, and the voice that so many people loved still filled arenas. On the inside, however, something very different was happening. The choice to stay silent about the illness was not just about keeping a private life private. It slowly became a deep emotional strain that added to the physical pain already present. Every day brought new fear, new worry, and new questions that had no clear answers. How long could the truth stay hidden? How long could the body keep going without breaking down? At the same time that these health problems were growing worse, life was also asking Celine Dion to face one of the hardest losses anyone can face. In 2016, René Angelil, the husband and partner who had been there through nearly every part of her career and personal life, died after a long fight with throat cancer. That loss was not just the loss of a husband, it was the loss of a best friend, a manager, a guide, and a steady presence. Grief and illness began to live side by side, each one making the other harder to carry. While one part of life demanded strength and bravery for 3 young sons, another part quietly asked for rest, honesty, and care. Dion later shared that this period felt like a long and lonely battle. There was the pain of watching René grow weaker, and at the same time, there was the pain of feeling a body slowly lose control. Even simple actions became harder. Muscles would tighten, movement would feel strange, fear would rise without warning. Still, the role of mother, performer, and public figure pushed everything forward. Dion explained that there was a feeling of needing to be strong for everyone else. Kids needed a parent. Fans expected a voice. A career that had been built over decades seemed too important to stop. Raising 3 sons added another layer to this emotional weight. Children need care, safety, and a feeling that life is steady. Dion worked hard to give that, even when personal health was not steady at all. Nelson and Eddie, the twins, were still young. They needed school mornings, bedtime routines, and small moments of joy. Keeping things normal for them became a quiet mission. That meant putting on a brave face, even when the body felt tired and the mind felt overwhelmed. Silence also grew from a deep sense of responsibility toward the people who had supported her for so many years. Dion had always felt a strong connection to the audience. Those fans were not just people who bought tickets. They were people who had followed a long journey, who had celebrated highs and stood by through lows. Telling the truth about the illness felt risky. Would fans worry too much? Would tours be canceled? Would disappointment spread? These thoughts added pressure to an already stressful situation. Before any clear diagnosis, there were moments when something felt off. Songs that once felt easy started to feel hard. Notes that used to come without effort suddenly needed adjustment. Dion would sometimes ask conductors to lower the key of a song because the voice did not behave the same way anymore. These changes were confusing and frightening. With concerts booked far into the future and shows sold out around the world, there was a feeling of being trapped by success. The world was ready for more music, more performances, and more appearances, while the body was quietly asking for something different. Keeping the truth hidden slowly began to feel heavier than the illness itself. Dion later explained that the act of lying, or even just not telling the full truth, became painful. The need to protect a career and protect loved ones turned into a wall that kept real feelings locked inside. Over time, that wall grew taller and harder to climb. Friends, family, and even children were not fully aware of what was happening. That kind of loneliness can make even strong people feel small and tired. Living with unexplained symptoms for 17 years takes a toll not just on muscles or movement, but on the mind and heart. When a body changes without clear answers, fear becomes a daily companion. Each new symptom raises a question. Is this normal? Is this getting worse? Will this ever stop? Without a name for the illness, there was no clear path forward. There was only guessing, waiting, and hoping. Psychologists often say that when illness changes a person's life, it can also change how that person sees the future. Plans that once felt certain begin to feel fragile. Dreams that once felt close begin to feel far away. That kind of change can shake a sense of identity. Celine Dion was not just a singer. Music was part of who she was. When that part felt threatened, it affected everything else. The emotional strain did not stay only in the mind. Stress and worry have a way of showing up in the body. Sleepless nights, tight muscles, and racing thoughts became part of daily life. Even the heart and stomach can feel the weight of long-held fear. This is not weakness. This is how the human body reacts when something important feels out of control. For years, Dion tried to push through. There was a belief that strength meant continuing no matter what. There was a hope that things might improve on their own. But the longer the silence lasted, the harder it became. Hiding pain requires energy, and energy was already in short supply. When Dion finally chose to speak openly about stiff person syndrome, that moment was not just about sharing a diagnosis. It was about letting go of years of fear and secrecy. It was about allowing others to see the full truth, not just the polished stage version. Speaking out created space not just for understanding, but for something even more powerful: support, connection, and the chance to finally begin healing. But what pushed her to break her silence now? Stay with us and watch until the very end, because the truth behind her timing changes everything. What made her speak now? After years of quiet struggle and carefully kept privacy, several powerful moments slowly pushed Celine Dion toward a choice that changed everything, which was to speak openly about living with stiff person syndrome, a rare and serious condition that had been shaping every part of daily life behind closed doors. For a long time, Dion worked hard to protect a public image of strength and grace, the same image that had carried a global career for decades. But inside, a heavy weight kept building. Dion later explained that keeping so much hidden felt like carrying a truth that kept growing heavier each day. There was a point when holding on to that secret became harder than telling it. That quiet pressure, mixed with a body that no longer behaved the way it once had, created a breaking point that could no longer be ignored. Dion shared that trying to keep smiling in public while struggling in private felt like living two separate lives, and that split became too painful to manage. As the condition progressed, everyday movement became more and more difficult, and Dion described a time when even walking across a room felt like climbing a mountain. Dion said that there was a period when holding on to chairs, counters, and anything nearby became the only way to stay upright. That kind of living did not feel like true living, and it did not feel like peace either. Dion described it as a kind of waiting, but waiting for what was unclear. This slow loss of independence made even simple moments feel heavy, and over time it became impossible to ignore how much had changed. The physical limits were no longer small inconveniences, but constant reminders that something serious was happening. That realization began to shift the way Dion looked at everything, including the need for privacy. What once felt like protection started to feel like a burden. There was a moment when the idea of staying silent felt more painful than speaking. Dion said that not telling the truth started to feel like carrying something too heavy to hold. The energy it took to keep explaining absences, to keep smiling through interviews, and to keep performing when possible was draining what little strength remained. That is when the mindset slowly moved from hiding to honesty. The decision was not made in one day, but through many quiet realizations that the truth deserved space. Dion explained that being open was not about giving up, but about finding a way to breathe again. Transparency offered relief, and with that relief came a sense of freedom that had been missing for a long time. Family played a major role in that journey, especially Dion's 3 sons, who became a steady source of love and care. The bond between a mother and children grew even stronger during this time, and Dion shared how the boys started checking in every night. There was something deeply touching about hearing young voices calling out just to make sure everything was okay. Dion said that sometimes a little extra time would pass, and the boys would come to the door and gently ask if everything was fine. That kind of care showed how aware and loving the family had become. It was not just about concern, but about connection, about wanting to be close and supportive even in small ways. The support went far beyond emotional comfort. The family took practical steps to be prepared for difficult moments. Dion explained that crisis drills became part of life, happening every 2 to 3 months, so everyone knew what to do if a serious episode occurred. Panic buttons were placed around the home so help could be reached quickly if needed. The boys even learned how to position Dion safely during a severe episode, making sure that comfort and safety came first. That level of preparation showed how deeply everyone had come together to face the situation as a team. It was not easy, but it was filled with love and a shared determination to handle whatever came. One of the most painful moments that pushed Dion closer to going public came from the outside world. False reports about death began spreading online, and those rumors reached the family in a way that caused real hurt. Dion shared how the children saw those messages and came with fear in their eyes, asking if the words were true. That kind of moment shook everything. No parent wants to see children afraid because of something that is not real. Dion explained that those false stories did real damage, not just emotionally but also in how the condition was being misunderstood. That was when it became clear that silence was no longer protecting anyone. Speaking out became a way to take control of the narrative and bring truth where confusion had taken over. Dion wanted the world to understand what stiff person syndrome was and what it meant to live with it. More than that, Dion wanted to help others who might be going through the same thing, but feeling alone. By sharing the story, Dion hoped to raise awareness and bring attention to the need for more research, more clinical trials, and more treatment options. The goal was not just personal healing, but helping to build a future where better care and maybe even a cure could exist. Dion spoke about wanting to be part of raising funds and spreading knowledge so that others could have more hope. Even in the middle of everything, the spirit that made Dion a global star never disappeared. There was still a deep desire to return to the stage, to sing, and to feel the energy of an audience again. Dion made it clear that performing was not just a job, but a part of identity. Even though the timeline was uncertain, the determination was strong. Dion said that being back on stage would happen, even if no one could say exactly when. That promise carried a kind of fire that reminded everyone of the passion that had always driven the career. The journey from secrecy to honesty was not simple. It involved fear, vulnerability, and the risk of being seen in a way that was different from before. But it also brought connection, understanding, and a sense of relief that came from no longer carrying everything alone. Dion's openness allowed people around the world to see not just a famous singer, but a human being facing something incredibly difficult with courage. By sharing the truth, Dion created space for empathy and for conversations that matter. What stands out most is how love and resilience kept showing up at every turn. From the quiet strength found in family moments to the bold decision to speak publicly, every step reflected a deep commitment to life and to honesty. Dion's story became about more than illness. It became about choosing truth over fear, connection over isolation, and hope over silence. Even on days when movement was hard and energy was low, the heart behind the voice remained strong. That strength continues to shape what comes next. With awareness growing and support increasing, the future holds possibilities that once felt out of reach. Dion's choice to speak openly has already made a difference, not just for personal healing, but for a wider community that now feels seen and heard. And through it all, the love of family, the drive to perform, and the belief in a better tomorrow keep pushing her forward, one honest moment at a time. But what her revelation means for others is where the real impact begins. So make sure you stay with us till the very end, because it changes everything. What her revelation means for others. Celine Dion's decision to speak openly about living with stiff person syndrome has quietly but powerfully shifted something in the world far beyond music, fame, or even her own personal journey. Because when a voice that has carried so much beauty and emotion for so many decades suddenly starts speaking about pain, fear, and uncertainty, people everywhere start to listen in a different way. And that listening has changed how this rare illness is seen and understood. For years, stiff person syndrome lived mostly in the shadows of medical textbooks and small patient support groups, known mainly by doctors and those unlucky enough to be diagnosed with it. But once Dion allowed cameras into her life and showed what daily living with the condition really looks like, that quiet, hidden world was suddenly brought into the light. And for many people dealing with similar struggles, that moment felt like a door opening after being closed for a very long time. Across social media and fan communities, reactions to Dion's documentary were deeply emotional, with people describing it as raw, honest, and heartbreaking in the best way, because it did not try to soften or hide the truth. People saw a woman who had spent a lifetime standing tall on some of the biggest stages in the world, now dealing with muscle stiffness, pain, and fear about whether singing would even be possible again. That kind of honesty hit home for many viewers, especially those who have long felt invisible because of rare or misunderstood illnesses. Suddenly, someone famous was saying out loud what so many had been whispering to doctors, family members, and themselves. It was not just about one singer anymore. It became about millions of people who finally felt seen. The Stiff Person Syndrome Research Foundation even said that her openness pushed awareness forward by what felt like decades, because more people learned about the illness in a few months than in many years before. That kind of shift is rare, and it shows the real power of one person telling the truth at the right time. For people living with stiff person syndrome or other chronic and autoimmune conditions, Dion's words did something very simple but very important. They reduced shame. Rare illnesses often come with misunderstanding. People may look healthy on the outside while struggling deeply on the inside, and that gap can create feelings of doubt, isolation, and even guilt. When Dion showed that even someone with fame, money, and success can be affected in such a serious way, it sent a clear message that illness does not choose based on status or talent. That message made it easier for others to open up about what was happening in their own bodies. Many people began sharing stories online about muscle spasms, misdiagnoses, and long journeys to finally being believed. Seeing a well-known figure speak honestly made it safer for others to do the same, and that safety can be life-changing. The impact of Dion's disclosure also goes beyond the people directly affected by stiff person syndrome. It has changed how the general public looks at celebrity vulnerability. For a long time, famous people were expected to appear strong, perfect, and untouchable. Health struggles were often hidden or carefully managed behind the scenes. But when someone as respected and admired as Dion chooses to be open about a serious condition, It breaks that old image. Research has shown that when celebrities talk about health issues, people become more aware, more informed, and more likely to understand symptoms and treatments. In other words, these moments do not just make headlines. They teach. A student once said that when people feel alone in their struggles, hearing a celebrity speak up can make a huge difference because it shows that pain and fear are shared parts of being human, no matter who someone is. Dion's honesty has also helped correct some of the many misunderstandings around stiff person syndrome. Because it is so rare, many people had never even heard of it before her documentary. Some may have thought it was simply stiffness or something that could be easily managed, but her story showed how serious and complex it really is. The condition can affect movement, speech, and daily activities in ways that are both painful and unpredictable. By putting a real face and a real voice to the diagnosis, Dion helped turn a medical term into something people could understand on a human level. That kind of understanding builds compassion, and compassion makes the world a little easier for those who are struggling. What makes Dion's story even more powerful is that it does not end with awareness alone. She has also taken clear action to support research and future treatments. In June 2024, the Celine Dion Foundation pledged $2 million to create the Celine Dion Foundation Endowed Chair in Autoimmune Neurology. This is not just a symbolic gesture. This endowment is meant to support serious scientific work focused on autoimmune neurological disorders, with an emphasis on turning research into real treatments that can help patients. By funding this kind of work, Dion is using her platform not just to talk about the illness, but to push the science forward, which could lead to better care and better outcomes for people all over the world. At the same time, Dion has made it clear that her own journey is far from over. Despite the challenges of stiff person syndrome, her desire to return to the stage has not disappeared. When she said that she wants to go back on stage and needs to know if that is possible, those words carried both hope and realism. She was not pretending that everything is easy. She was simply expressing a deep love for music and a strong will to keep going. Her statement about walking, crawling, and not stopping shows a kind of determination that many people with chronic illness recognize in themselves. Progress does not always look the same for everyone, and sometimes it comes in very small steps. But what matters is the refusal to give up. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.